Hi, Nick Doak with North State Law. We safeguard your professional license so you can get back to business. Today, we're going to talk about the impact of discipline on licensees with the North Carolina Board of Nursing. So these are going to be your licensed practical nurses, registered nurses, certified registered nurse anesthetist, and nurse practitioners. I know nurse practitioners are jointly regulated with the medical board and the nursing board, but most of the time, if there's going to be some discipline, it's going to come from the nursing board. There's always exceptions to that, and sometimes it gets kicked over to the medical board. But for all intents and purposes, the overwhelming majority are regulated by the nursing board when it comes to actually implementation of discipline. So, anyways, there are a multitude of options available from the Board of Nursing. But in order for the Board of Nursing in North Carolina to get to anything that would even be considered non-discipline, let alone discipline, they have to make some sort of finding that there was a violation of the Nursing Practice Act. In order for them to be able to do that, they've got to have some sort of evidentiary proof to say that, hey, we meet the burden of proof, which is by a clear and convincing evidentiary standard, which is pretty high. The only thing higher is your old criminal standard, which is beyond a reasonable doubt, right? So let's just say, for argument's sake, licensee comes in front of the board, they go through the interview process, investigative report gets kicked over to the investigative committee. They believe that there's a violation of the Nursing Practice Act. They can offer a private letter of concern. You don't really have an option to take that or not. Obviously, you don't want to not take it. It's not considered discipline. It just stays in the file with the board. Nobody's going to see it. The next option would be a non-disciplinary consent order. As the name suggests, it's not considered discipline. It's voluntarily entered into by the licensee. There's usually some course or courses that are continuing education, but they don't actually count towards your continuing education requirement for that particular year. They're just extras that are done to comply with the non-disciplinary consent order. Above that is when you start getting into actual things considered discipline, and these are going to be your public reprimands. You might enter into the disciplinary program. A little bit about the public reprimand. Public reprimands are, as I say, you're being publicly reprimanded. They are considered discipline. They're going to be reported to the National Practitioners Data Bank. Depending on what the allegation is, if it's fraud, then it's likely that the nursing board is going to report that to the Office of Inspector General, which is a federal agency. They'll look at it. They can put you on an exclusion list, which basically keep you from having any job that involves that receives federal funding. Obviously, you don't want to be on there. There can be public reprimands that are discipline that also have probationary conditions. That's also something that can really restrict what type of jobs that you can get. And these are designed to not only obviously help the nurse, but in the eyes of the nursing board, help the general public, because they feel like the nurse is not equipped, especially at that time, to work, maybe work a 7P to 7A. So they'll restrict the licensee from working 7P to 7A, or keep an hours limit on the licensee for 48 hours. Like, all right, you can't work more than one 12-hour shift in 48 hours. That's typically another one. And there's usually, if they're going to do probationary conditions on any sort of order, it's going to be a laundry list of them. At the end of the day, though, if that's an offer that's acceptable and that's an offer that you can do, and you're going to be able to keep your job or get a new one, and there's really no argument that the thing you're being accused of doing was not done, then that might be your best option. The one that's above public reprimand is and separate from disciplinary program. I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but one above like a public reprimand is going to be your suspension. Now, the Board of Nursing could do a revocation. In our experience, they don't actually do revocations. They'll just do suspension. It could be 12 months, it could be 24 months, 6 months, 9 months. It really just depends on the allegation, the severity of it, any mitigating factors, things like that. Now, with a suspension, that is going to be reported over to the Office of Inspector Generals. So same thing I talked about before with any sort of fraud allegations that is believed to have been committed. Once the pen put to paper on that and the consent order is filed with the board, then with the fraud or any sort of suspension, they report that over to the Office of Inspector Generals, and the Office of Inspector General will go through the process to add that licensee on their exclusion list. So in addition to not being able to actively work for a set period of time, any sort of suspension is obviously going to make it a little bit more difficult to get a job once the suspension is lifted, and you're likely to be on the exclusion list through the Office of Inspector General. So those are things that you really have to be mindful of when you're considering doing something that you shouldn't be doing, obviously, because there might be a shortcut there, or there might be something that pops up where, your temper gets triggered or you're exhausted and you act out of frustration or something along those lines. Those are the things where you just got to take a step back, never abandon your patient. Not saying that, but maybe take a step back for a minute, compose yourself, and then get back in there, talk to your charge nurse if you need to, or whatever you need to do to prevent yourself from violating the Nursing Practice Act in a manner that's going to result in a suspension, right? Because with the suspension, it's public record. It's going to be published on the board's website. It's going to be sent over to the Office of Inspector General. And it's also going to be reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank. Anything that's considered discipline is reported over the National Practitioners Data Bank. So the next one that I talked about a little bit is the disciplinary program, also known as DP. And what that is, it's a public version of a substance abuse program that the Board of Nursing offers. So they have two other ones. I've talked about those in a different video when talking about substance abuse for nurses. Those are the alternative program, AP, and then the intervention program, which is IP. Those are kept private. You go through those and you come out the other side, and they're not considered discipline. They're not published on the board's website, and nobody has to know about it as far as the general public's concerned. Disciplinary program, you're looking at likely 12 to 36 months. There'd be a laundry list of probationary conditions on there: drug screening, alcohol screening, check-ins with the compliance coordinator with the board, supervision most likely, things like that. And it's considered discipline. Unfortunately, it's published on the board's website. It's sent over to the National Practitioners Data Bank as well. So the biggest thing with any sort of substance abuse is that the issues that risen to the substance or cause of substance abuse issues in the first place are dealt with. The licensee's well-being is the biggest thing. So you want to take care of yourself. If that means, hey, I got to go into this program, then do it. And when you get done with it, you're out of the program. You keep doing everything that you need to do that kept your sobriety during that time. But just as an FYI, disciplinary program is considered discipline, and it is going to be published on the website. It's going to be sent over to the National Practitioner Data Bank as well. So that's kind of the long and short of the disciplinary measures that the Board of Nursing has in North Carolina. If you got any follow-up questions, check out the blogs on my website. It's northstatelawfirm.com. Got a lot of blogs on there for nurses. You can also check out the other videos on my website. That's North State Law's website, North State Law's YouTube channel, I should say. And if you still can't find what you're looking for in either one of those spots, then give us a call or a text. It's 919-521-8810. That's 919-521-8810. And you can get a free 15-minute discovery call with a member of my staff. Thank you so much for everything that you do for North Carolina. Please keep taking care of North Carolina. Have a good day. Bye-bye.